Last June, U.S. President Barack Obama unveiled Power Africa, a plan to double the number of people with access to power in sub-Saharan Africa. With more on that, we are joined by Africa 54's Paul Ndiho. Paul?
Thanks, Rollo. How far has Africa come in its energy sector? U.S. government officials, Africa energy ministers, and representatives from more than 30 U.S. energy and petroleum companies met in Ethiopia recently. On the agenda, energy policies and energy-efficient technologies. Here is a look. More than two-thirds of the population of sub-Saharan Africa is without electricity, and more than 85% of those living in rural areas lack access to power. The Power Africa initiative is expected to build on Africa's enormous power potential, including new discoveries of vast reserves of oil and gas, and the potential to develop a clean geothermal, hydro, wind, and solar energy. President Obama explained the need for the $7 billion initiative last year while speaking at the University of Cape Town.
Access to electricity is fundamental to opportunity in this age. It's the light that children study by, the energy that allows an idea to be transformed into a real business, the lifeline for families to meet their most basic needs, and it's the connection that's needed to plug Africa into the grid of the global economy. You've got to have power.
The program was formally launched last week to make our power more accessible to Africans who are not being serviced by their national grids. Through small-scale energy solutions dubbed Beyond the Grid, the initiative will use partnerships with 27 investors and energy companies committing to invest over $1 billion to grow off the grid and small-scale solutions on the continent.
Our Power Africa program already supports over 25 small-scale energy projects, but Beyond the Grid will expand this significantly, facilitating over $1 billion in new private sector investment.
According to the International Energy Agency, the region will require more than $300 billion in investment to achieve universal electricity access by 2030. The Power Africa initiative aims to install 10,000 megawatts of new generation capacity, connect 20 million new customers, and improve electricity reliability across the continent. Africa is rich in energy. There are enormous untapped resources of gas, oil, coal, geothermal, solar, and wind power that could easily meet the region's requirements. Analysts say the big obstacle to electrification in Africa is not constructing power stations and building overhead power lines.
So Power Africa basically gives every developer who's trying to build a power plant in Africa a red phone, a red line to dial directly to the U.S. agencies and say, hey, I have a project in Africa, can you look at it? And what it does is it moves your project to the front of the line.
Critics say that another major problem for investors is that customers often fail to pay utilities. Unless the payment and credit problems can be resolved, electrification is unlikely to make much progress. Power Africa is rooted in partnership. U.S. energy officials and business people will initially work with power experts in Ethiopia, Ghana, Kenya, Liberia, Nigeria, and Tanzania.